Hi everyone, I'm Hsing-ay Hsu in New York City, and I'm so excited to introduce to you author Ron Stewart from Lafayette, Colorado, which is right outside Boulder. How are you, Ron?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Sing. But you mentioned something about the capacity within music to be for a listener to withdraw. That is, you can sit quietly. That's what you're required to do, and absorb the music and let your mind go where it was. And that is not a shared experience. You're doing that individually. And I think that music offers cathartic moments like that while one is sitting in the concert hall to be thinking about all kinds of different things. Who knows what? But if you have an audience of 2,000 people in a concert hall, there's a lot of different thoughts going on, none of which will be known generally, and probably only a few of which will be shared. So music offers a reflection time. It's kind of a retreat room.
Well, I think you just touched on two different layers of being in a concert hall, one of which is being in communion with ourselves, right? I see
Yeah.
reflection, especially listening to music consciously, as a way to get in touch with what we ourselves are feeling, thinking, and being. And we also really, as a society, we have failed miserably to make time to get in touch with ourselves. Then the other layer that you were touching on is that there's all these people around you. And I think that without actually getting into the intellectual bonding of ideas, sharing a physical space with a lot of people is in itself a spiritual experience in being aware of everything outside of ourselves. And again, I think we as a society have failed miserably to be aware of what's going on in everybody else's life in other countries. I mean, just look at our news. It's all about like how can we make a quick emotional response and make you stay on the TV set or on stay on your computer. It's not about just being aware of actually being part of these 2,000 people. I mean,
Yeah.
what an amazing feeling that is in and of itself, even before the concert has started. And so I always think of the concert experience as such a social one, even if you don't talk to anyone, even if you're a complete introvert, but to share a space with other people.
Along that line, and coming on the heels of this COVID-19 horrible experience we've had, I've heard it mentioned many times now that people are once again going back to the concert hall. Invariably, the performers will mention what a joy it is to be performing, to all the things that they practice and work on so hard, to now actually have a real live collection of people, as if there's an energy that's collecting within the concert hall that propels the performance even, not just the listening, of course, but also the performance. And you mentioned something that when sometimes you perform, you lift your eyes to the very highest point of the concert hall and focus there, because that's where you can find the melding of the sounds that are being produced by the orchestra, by your piano. That's where they collect up there, in a kind of way. And you have a trained ear to listen for that sort of thing at the top of the concert hall. I find that kind of interesting. It's a collection of energy. It's like the vapor rising, and collecting up there in a storm cloud or something.
I said this before I played the Mozart concerto, which I was so glad that you were able to make. So thanks for coming to my
Very
concert.
beautiful.
But yeah, and so that leads me to another layer of experiencing the music is my actually sharing some very specific thoughts about being in communion to the audience verbally before I started playing, so that you in the audience can know exactly what's going on behind the curtain inside my brain as I'm experiencing this joy of being in communion with the sound with all of you in a shared space like that.
And isn't
Yeah.
this kind of a contemporary thing that is a development among conductors, performers, that's fairly recent. It seems to me you would go to the concert and nothing would be spoken by the performer or the conductor. You would come in and you would sit down and you would be quiet. You would applaud, and then the music would begin. And there was no attempt to explain what the performer thinks about the music that's going to be performed. And I don't know if there's a specific reason for doing this, but I do think as a non-musician and as a listener, if you're able to put some ideas behind the sounds that you're about to hear, it adds a whole depth to it, I think. So I'm glad that performers are doing more and more of this. And your job was especially good.
Thank you. Well, it still remains something that is not done very often, especially with concertos. And I asked permission specifically beforehand if it was okay for me to take a few moments to talk to the audience. And it was part of an idea that I'm trying to bring forth as an artist ambassador, that I would offer multiple entry points for the audience to engage. But it is still not done very often because there is also this sense of tradition that is very strong in classical music. And the challenge is, how do we balance, how do we find this dynamic tension between honoring the traditions and then creating ways that really work for the people of our times, the audiences of today?
Well, it's something that will probably evolve and, work itself out as time goes on, as other things have in music history. Even tempo. Some recent reading I did suggested that modern tempo of classical pieces has quickened. And maybe it has to do with our modern lifestyle. We live life at a faster pace, so maybe we expect to get on with it or something. Or maybe it's just our heartbeat and our breathing have modified because of the environment that we're in to operate at a faster pace. And I don't know.
We've become more conforming. If you look back to the great romantic artists of, the golden age, people had faster tempos, they had slower tempos, they had a very individual, very subjective way of looking at things. And today we are such technocrats. If you look at, competitions, for instance, the ones that are more about tradition tend to have more rewards for people who are within goalposts, right? Like, you can have your individualism, but don't go outside this. Yeah. And so what you're wanting to do as artistic listeners is to find the concerts, the competitions, who actually value the whole person and the whole expression, not being within lines, but having this really well-rounded awareness. If we were talking about character arc, to go from a place of I'm doing it because I love music to I'm doing it because I'm aware of the world, I'm aware of myself, my values, I'm aware of where I intersect and what I can contribute. And all of that needs to be part of the music making. Ron, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you very much, Hsing-ay. Always a pleasure.